Hello, my dear students, and welcome to your online class. My name is teacher Cosme Robalino, and today we are going to talk about photosynthesis. And it's an interesting topic called testing the rate of photosynthesis. We already talked about photosynthesis last week, and today we are going to talk about testing the rate or the speed of photosynthesis. You guys are expert in the topic of photosynthesis because we already studied that last week. And so now we are going to talk about the rate of photosynthesis. So as usual, first we are going to talk about our objective, and then we are going to talk about the key concepts that are important to keep in mind. Okay, so the objective today is to investigate light as a limiting factor of photosynthesis. So we are going to study what are the factors of photosynthesis, the three factors of photosynthesis, and we are going to see how light can affect the procedure that we call photosynthesis. So what are the key concepts today? Well, the first one is something that we already know, which is a plant produces glucose or simple sugar using energy from three elements. The first one is the sunlight or any kind of light. The second element is the carbon dioxide from the air. And the third element is water from the soil. And all this process happens through something that we call photosynthesis. Excuse me. The concentration of carbon dioxide, the intensity of the light, and temperature, also the intensity of temperature, all of these determine how quickly or how slowly photosynthesis takes place, right? So there are three factors. Now, the rate of photosynthesis can be measured by looking at how quickly or how slowly an aquatic plant like Kabomba releases oxygen into the water when it is processing or when it's under the process of photosynthesis. Okay, so next we are going to look at the diagram that you already know. But before that, let me show you the Kabomba plant. Here you have an aquatic plant, right, that releases oxygen. It takes the oxygen from the water that it surrounds, breaks down the molecules, and then oxygen is released into the water. We're going to watch a video explaining the process of photosynthesis at the end of this presentation. And on the other picture, the other image shows a plant in a laboratory setting, right? So it's ready to be studied, to be analyzed, to see exactly how photosynthesis takes place and also how the rate is affected. Okay, so I was telling you about the diagram that you already know, but I think it's a good idea to take a second look or to review so we remember how exactly photosynthesis takes place. So here we have the three elements, right? Number one, the light energy coming directly from the sun. This is a sunny day in this picture. Then we have the carbon dioxide that is present in the atmosphere. And these two elements, the light energy and the carbon dioxide, are absorbed through the leaves, right? Through the leaves. And we have the water and the minerals underground. The water and these minerals are absorbed through the roots, and the water is transported upward or upward through the stem of the plant to the leaves. And what are the two products that are elaborated by the plant? Well, one is the oxygen released into the air, right? And the other one is sugar or glucose, which is stored in the leaves also, but the plant can also store the sugar in the fruit and in the seeds. Okay, so here we have the formula of water. 2 atoms of hydrogen and 1 atom of oxygen, they combine to form water, right? Okay, the water underground. Then what's the formula for carbon dioxide? 2 atoms of oxygen and 1 atom of carbon. This is the formula for carbon dioxide. Okay, it looks like chemistry, I know, but photosynthesis is a chemical reaction that gives sugar as a result, and sugar gives the plant energy, right? Okay, so what is the formula for sugar? I'm sure you know it, but let's take a look. We have 2 atoms of carbon, 12 atoms of hydrogen, and 6 atoms of oxygen. All these form a molecule of sugar that gives the plant the energy for all its functions, okay, to grow, etc., etc. Okay, so here you have the chemical reaction. So let's take a look. The word rate refers to how quickly a process occurs over time, right? It can be any process, yeah? So the rate only refers to the speed, how quickly, how slowly it takes place. Now, so the rate of photosynthesis is a measure of how quickly this process of photosynthesis takes place. Yeah, it can, if you let's say if you diminish the light energy or if you increase the light energy, then the process of photosynthesis is going to be affected. Now, let's recall from topic number 2 that photosynthesis is a process by which plants, algae or aquatic plants, and some bacteria, not all of it, but some bacteria, use the light energy of the sun to produce glucose and oxygen, right? These two products from carbon dioxide and water, yeah? And obviously, sunlight. So by measuring one of these products, the light, the carbon dioxide, or the water, we can determine the rate of photosynthesis. So, as I was telling you, the 3 factors that affect the rate of photosynthesis are, number 1, the light intensity. So you can say that the light is bright, a lot of light, or, and that means very, very shiny, right? Or dim, not very shiny. The other factor is the temperature of the air or the atmosphere, right? It could be just right, too hot, or too cold. And finally, the third factor is the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, either too much or too little. So these 3 factors are also known as the limiting factors, right? So either of them, not only the light energy, not only the carbon dioxide, or not only the water, either is the limiting factor. When one of these 3 factors is not enough or insufficient, it will limit how quickly photosynthesis can take place, right? Only a change in one of the factors will have a consequence in the photosynthesis. So in other words, a change to one of these limiting factors will change the rate of photosynthesis. It will go either faster or slower. So the rate of photosynthesis increases or goes up when light gets brighter, right? So you increase the light, and the result is that the photosynthesis goes faster. Now, there is a limit, because at a certain light intensity, the rate stays the same or constant. It doesn't change. Any further rise in light intensity has no more effect on the rate of photosynthesis, right? And so you're going to look at one of the other factors, either the temperature or the carbon dioxide, as a limiting factor. Okay, so you don't study the intensity of light anymore, right? Because it's too intense, too bright, or maybe too dim. Okay, so here, for example, we can see shade plants, which can only need a little bit of light, not a lot of light. The leaves on the top of the trees are absorbing a lot of sunlight because they need that, but the shade plants don't need too much sunlight, right? Many plants spread their leaves to absorb as much light as possible, and so to prevent the higher leaves from covering the leaves before. So if there are leaves up and there are leaves down, the leaves underneath will have to spread so that they can absorb light. Now, too much light can damage the chloroplast of some plants. For example, if you are in the deserts, right, there's no way for plants like woodland plants to grow because the chloroplasts get damaged. So they are more efficient in dim lights, like the plants that we can see in the picture. These plants are called shade plants and include ferns. So look around in your house. Perhaps you have shade plants that are happy with just a little bit of light. Next, we're going to see these experiments where we have an aquatic plant on the left side of the screen, an aquatic plant submerged in water. And you can see the oxygen bubbles coming out. So that means that the plant is under the process of photosynthesis. And on the right side of the experiment, we can see a lamp. So in order to study the rate of photosynthesis, you have to vary the distance. That's all you have to do. Change the distance between the plant and the lights. And you can measure that with the ruler. As you move closer, the intensity of the light increases, and therefore the rate of photosynthesis also increases. If you move away the light, then the rate of photosynthesis will decrease as a result. Until, of course, there is a moment when you cannot move the light any further because it's too dark, or you cannot move it any closer because it's too bright. Okay, so even if there is a lot of light, plants cannot perform photosynthesis unless, of course, there is sufficient carbon dioxide. Furthermore, or in addition to all of this, if it's too cold, for example, when it's snowing, right, the rate of photosynthesis will decrease. Yeah, and that's why some pine trees, for example, it's not like they die, but It's just that the photosynthesis rate is very, very low. Or if it gets too hot, plants cannot perform photosynthesis at all, at all. So that's why plants cannot survive in the desert, right? Okay. So, as I told you, we are going to watch a video showing all this process.
Ever wonder where most of the food you eat every day comes from? Well, about 60% of the food you eat is carbohydrates. As you can probably tell from its name, carbohydrates contain carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. But where do these atoms originally come from, and how do they join together to make delicious foods like fruits and pasta? It actually all starts with the air you are exhaling at this very minute, specifically the carbon dioxide molecules. Plants are going to breathe in this very same carbon dioxide through pores in their skin called stomata. Plants drink in water from their roots to get the needed oxygen and hydrogen atoms and their electrons in order to build carbohydrates. What is that thing? Well, that's a special plant organelle inside the leaves of plants called a chloroplast. It's green because of a special light-absorbing pigment called chlorophyll. Each leaf has about 44,000 cells, and every cell can have anywhere between 20 to 100 chloroplasts. That's up to 4,400,000 chloroplasts. By now, you've probably guessed that we're talking about the process of photosynthesis, and you might be wondering when the sun is going to make its entrance. Let's go back to that original molecule of water. The plant has to split this molecule of water so that it can get electrons from it. But the plant can't pull that water apart by itself. It needs help from the high-energy rays of the sun. So now that the chloroplast has all the building blocks, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, and electrons, it can use them to go through the rest of the steps of photosynthesis, to transform that original carbon dioxide gas into a simple carbohydrate called glucose, C6H12O6. That little glucose molecule then helps to build bigger and better carbohydrates like cellulose. Cellulose is a type of carbohydrate found in plants that our body cannot break down. We call it fiber, and we eat it in vegetables like lettuce, broccoli, and celery. Plants use cellulose to keep themselves strong. The plant could also turn that glucose into starch, a large molecule that stores energy for the plant. We love eating starch from plants like potatoes, corn, and rice. So you see, when we eat plants, we're actually benefiting from photosynthesis. The plant makes things like starch, which we eat and then break back down into glucose, the first form the plant made. Then, the mitochondria in our cells, powered by the oxygen we breathe, can turn glucose into pure energy molecules called ATP. ATP powers all work done by each and every one of your cells, things like communication, movement, and transport. But why do we have to turn that glucose into ATP? Well, think of it like this. You're excited to start your summer job at the local ice cream stand, but your boss has just told you that she is going to pay you in ice cream cones. What are you going to be able to do with those ice cream cones? Nothing, which is why you kindly ask to be paid in dollars. ATP is just like dollars. It is the currency that all cells of life use, while glucose is, well, kind of like ice cream. Even plants have mitochondria in their cells to break down the glucose they make into ATP. So as you can see, humans and plants are intricately connected. The air we breathe out is used by plants to make the carbohydrates we enjoy so much. And in the process, they are releasing the very same oxygen molecules we need to breathe in order that our mitochondria can break down our delicious carbohydrate meal.
Okay, so as we saw in the video, there is a very strong interaction between plants and animals. And well, we are animals, so there is a big connection, right? So anyways, thank you very much for your attention to the presentation today. Don't forget to ask any questions in the meeting next time that we see each other. And take care of yourself. Okay? Thank you very much. Bye-bye.